Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tiano here from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Now I do apologize if my voice has actually got a little bit off at this point today because, well, I'll tell you more on that later. Because today, we're about to be presenting to you another new Let's Play for our channel, and it's also the brand new Let's Play, original Let's Play for 2020. Because, you know how yesterday about the fact that Piglet and Daffy are going to be focusing on Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games for the time being, and as for me, for Tuesdays and Thursdays uploading schedule according to the actual daily schedules changed, we're about to be doing a Let's Play. We're going to be going back onto the Kirby games retrospective-wise, because, well, last time we touched upon Kirby, it was actually by the forms of Kirby's Epic Yarn on the Nintendo Wii, and this time around, we're about to be doing a Let's Play of Kirby's Adventure Wii, also known as Kirby's Return to Dreamland for those who lived in North America, but for me, I'm always going to call this Kirby's Adventure Wii just because, although despite the fact that it feels kind of like the similarity name by the forms of New Super Mario Bros. Wii, except it just usually calls it Kirby's Adventure Wii. So either way, let's begin with the forms of this game potentially. I'm actually really excited able to go back to the Kirby series of Let's Plays, as I mentioned this before, because it has been about almost 2 years now since we actually touched upon the forms of Kirby Let's Plays of Marathon stuff, because, well, we'd already gone through the majority of the platforming games basically, including the spin-off game, which is of course, you know, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and we figured we might as well able to go back onto the Kirby retrospective by going through Kirby's Adventure Wii / Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Now, as you can see, I did manage to erase my file right here because I need to go for a fresh start so that I can able to actually just to go ahead and do the Let's Play properly, and believe it or not, I haven't really touched upon this game for a very, very long time actually. But before we get into that, however, though, the main focus of this Let's Play will have to be the main mode. And as far as everything else, though, we'll talk more on that later. So even then, let's begin with Kirby's Adventure Wii, or as far as North American version is concerned, Kirby Return to Dreamland. So even then, for the Nintendo Wii. And this is how the plot begins. Basically, there's actually this very interesting spaceship just managed to able to land onto that specific dreamland. And as a result of this specific stuff, what happens is the fact that the actual I would classify for saying, Lord Spacecrafter, I think that's what the actual name of the ship is called, has been crashed down to Dreamland, and as a result, it actually lost some of the parts. So it's up to Kirby and, well, Mennonite King DDD, and a newcomer to the lineup, which is Bandana Waddle D, which I think he was first appeared in the forms of Kirby Superstar Ultra for the Nintendo DS. Now, talking of which, actually, is the fact that with that strange particular character that we meet up inside of the actual ship, he's actually known as Mega Lore, which we'll find out more about him until whenever we get to future points throughout the game. So even then, here we go with the first world, as you can see right there, which appears to be buddy forms of Cookie Country, which, as far as I can tell, because of how the fact that, well, this is the grassy, typical grassland themed level as far as you're most likely aware of. So, yeah, this is how the gameplay works in the forms of Kirby's Adventure Wii, or North America, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, of course. It plays very similar to the forms of how it does it on the previous Kirby games, basically, including the likes of, you know, Kirby Mouse Attack, and especially noticeable with Kirby Superstar Ultra. Now, originally, we were supposed to be able to deal with Kirby Superstar Ultra before we jump into this, but however though, we're still pretty much lacking when it comes to capture card setup when it comes to Nintendo DS department, because as a result of that specific stuff, we're probably not going to do that Let's Play for any time soon. So even then, for now on, we'll just mainly stick with the forms of the console games, basically, because even then, we can able to actually just to be expected to how good the quality can be. So, yeah, to be expected, as you can see for that particular gameplay footage, as you can see right there. Returning from the previous games is, of course, the copy ability. So as you can see, we got ourselves the sword copy ability, which plays out exactly like how it sounds. The next ability is, of course, or the copy ability, as you can see, is the fire, which plays exactly like how it did in the previous games, basically. There's more likely a combination of both fire and fireball at the same time, because you can able to perform a fireball dash, and you can also utilize the flamethrowers if you like, and then you can able to actually change the maneuvering when it comes to the flamethrower by simply able to actually just, well, specifically just press up and down on the directional pad. Because yeah, just like the forms of how it does on Kirby's Epic Yarn, that this game is only been playable when it comes to the actual Wii remote on its own. Because you know, with 2D platformer games, does manage to work with 2D, well, buddy forms of holding the Wii remote sideways and all that stuff. New abilities in the lineup, specifically for Kirby's moveset, as you can see right there, is the fact that if you hold down the 1 button and then shake the Wii remote rapidly, so that you can able to actually eat up or gobble up bigger things. Like, for instance, there's bigger heavy blocks that we can't do it by inhale them, but instead we can able to actually utilize the stronger inhale. So even then, though, that's actually pretty handy if you really want to go after any sort of collectibles, like you know, the returning stars ever since joining forms of the previous Kirby games since Kirby 64. At least as far as I can recall that. And basically, because even then, I will mention more on that later, because if we go approach from here, this is where we're able to actually introduce something new to the Kirby series, and that appears to be the Ultimate Special Weapons, which even then, first off is the forms of Ultra Sword, which basically, that's how it sounds. Basically, if you use the 1 button, sometimes you can able to see the actual cinematics of what the actual Ultra powers can do, such as like the Ultra Sword can manage to able to do one heck of a slash, so that way it just manages to not only destroys enemies, but also objects here and there as well, such as, well, some ground environments and all that stuff, which can be helpful, especially noticeable that, as you can tell on the top left corner, that it feels kind of like, well, if you remember from the new Super Mario Bros. Games, basically, specifically for those star coins, these are energy spheres, which basically, it feels kind of like how it did on those star coins from the new Super Mario Bros. Games, except unlike in new Super Mario Bros. Games that, well, in new Super Mario Bros. On the DS, they can able to unlock some of these different cosmetic paintings, or in this case you can able to change your customizable bottom screen display, and especially noticeable in new Super Mario Bros. Wii, they can able to spend star coins onto hint movies. and especially noticeable with the star coins signs, if you'd like to say so for this matter though, and unlocking the special worlds afterward. So, but even then though, as far as energy spheres goes, it might actually do something that usually becomes unique, but even then though, we'll point that out whenever we get to it. So, but then again though, I do apologize if my voice has actually got a little bit iffy at this point, because unfortunately for me though, I managed to get myself a cold again, which as a result, it might actually really bothers me whenever I was trying to do some recording sessions, so much so. It is the actual first mini fight as far as you can see, which appears to be Sphere Duma, which every once in a while though, especially noticeable as you can tell, we ended up in the forms of that portal dimension, which basically what that means is that you can able to actually enter this specific stuff in certain stages. Like, for instance, we did manage to make all the way to the right by the beginning portion of that dimension portal, because if you don't keep up with the actual shifting wall that is trying to crush you, if you manage to fall down to the pit below, then if you bypass that, then you can always try to face off against with Sphere Duma. Now, when you're done with him, well, basically, it'll give you 2 energy spheres, which, you know, just like in any other Kirby games, basically, I'm obviously gonna go for 100% completion so that we can able to expect what's the actual award if you accomplish those stunts and stuff like this. So, and also very similar to Kirby's Adventure, and especially noticeable for Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, is the fact that in every single stage, always ends up with the forms of that specific goal game. Like, for instance, this is actually a throwback to the forms of Kirby's Adventure / Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, if you want to count that as a remake. So, it's pretty cool though. And similar to Kirby's Adventure / Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland is the fact that the stage progression is the fact that it's very self-explanatory. We need to go through door to door, and basically if you complete one of those stages, then you can move on to the next. So, and eventually there's going to be a boss battle at the very end of each world. So even then, yeah, that's as far as I can usually just try to describe about the forms of this game in particular. But that doesn't end off here, however, though, because this game actually introduced into ourselves some new copy abilities that's actually introduced in this title, which even then, we'll point that out whenever we get to World 2 and beyond. But at least we're able to find one in World 1, but not as often though. So even then though, let's go ahead and just automatically go on to the Warp Star. So to be expected, like in any other Kirby games, it allows you to able to transport to different areas automatically. So, but yeah, you get the idea for that solution here. And the next ability, as you can see right there, returning from the previous games, is the Cutter ability, which, to be expected, it plays exactly like how it did in the previous games for sure. Oh yeah, do you remember the forms of how it does it in the forms of Kirby Mouse Attack, where basically, in Kirby Mouse Attack, is the fact that that is where you're able to actually come across into yourselves into different movesets, depends on what copy abilities you'll be having, but in order to actually get them, is that you need to get those copy ability scrolls. Now, I believe in the forms of this game and the future games in the series, specifically Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, and even especially recently Star Allies, every single of those alternative moves has been unlocked from the get-go, which I do appreciate it, because even then, although it might be still requires to able to actually just to realize about the fact that, as you can tell, that the actual main collectibles in each and every single stages, as you can tell, it kind of feels like a similarity as the forms of the treasures from the forms of Kirby Mouse Attack, and especially noticeable with the furnitures from the likes of Kirby's Epic Yarn, although except the fact that we can't utilize the yarn abilities anymore, because, you know, this game plays out very much like the actual normal Kirby game, so, which is pretty cool though, because even then I always intend to enjoy a lot of Kirby games for sure. Some exceptions like, you know, Powered Paintbrush for the DS, and especially noticeable with Mass Attack, and especially noticeable with, you know, Rainbow Paintbrush, which I was expecting if that was going to be the main Kirby platforming game on the Wii U, but turns out it was actually a sequel to the DS game, which I wasn't too thrilled of, so that's probably just me. Oh yeah, every once in a while though, is the fact that, as you can see, we actually come across into ourselves into those specific cannon, and basically it's automatically fired, but in order to actually just to use it properly is the fact that, well, just simply just grab and hold it. So, not too shabby for the most part though for that item right there, so you know. Oh yeah, since then, about the fact that this game did first announce it back in E3 2011, and I will say, I was really excited when this game was first announced back in E3 2011, and because of that though, originally this game was supposed to be released on the Nintendo GameCube, but it's been cancelled ultimately, because as a result of that kind of stuff, this particular gameplay style for this looks kind of like identical to the GameCube cancelled title, but unfortunately we didn't get a chance to get that. You know, it's kind of like the same thing for how it does in Super Paper Mario, where originally that game was supposed to be released on the Nintendo GameCube, but of course, the GameCube's lifespan was actually didn't last until 2007, until when Nintendo Wii did came around, and as a result, that Super Paper Mario was only on the Wii instead. So it kind of feels like a similarity from here, but except it actually came out in 2011 as opposed to 2008, where we didn't get a Kirby game on the Wii until when Super Smash Bros. Brawl came around, which used to be a crossover fighting game. So, oh yeah, just like usual, there's going to be a lot of secrets around here, such as the invincibility lollipop, which to be expected like in any other games is that it gives you invincibility. So even then, I wasn't sure about the fact that about the actual, how long it lasts for, but anyways, let's go and grab that energy sphere from the top. So hopefully we're not going to miss that out, for sure. If we do miss it, however, though, similar to the star coins from the new Super Mario Bros. Games, I will eventually might able to actually just jump cut most of the actual footage, so that I can able to get it properly, so... And if you can tell right there, we actually switch over to the next copy ability returning from the previous games, which this time around we have Beam. And basically it plays out exactly like how it sounds. Basically you can either hold down the one button to able to charge your beam attack and then just release it otherwise, or you can able just, you know, just try to shoot the regular beams at him. And you can also use the block button, which even then, I think that ability makes a return from the likes of the previous games for sure. I'm not exactly 100% sure about that. Probably because of how the fact that it has been such a long time since we actually coming back onto the Kirby series of Let's Plays, you know? And in order to actually utilize the block button is the fact that, for some reason, on the Wii remotes, you have to hold down the A button in order to actually just to block. Whilst in the future games, up until likely in Triple Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Planet Robobot, and even especially noticeable with Star Allies potentially, that it allows you to utilize the one of your shoulder buttons, and that's all there is to know. Okay, something's worth mentioning is the fact that when this game was first announced, which I was super excited about back in the day in 2011, the main selling points with this game though is the fact that similar to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, this game also has multiplayer, which this time around though you actually take control of the Kirby characters rather than the Mario characters. Or, alternatively, you can able to actually just to play as, well, there are 4 playable characters, unless if you want to count multicolored versions of Kirby's themselves, which you can either play as King Dedede for the first time ever since Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, and especially noticeable with Meta Knight ever since on, I would classify for saying Meta Nightmare, and including in forms of Kirby Superstar Ultra for one of its own modes, which is Meta Nightmare Ultra. So even then, it's pretty cool though, especially how the fact that Kirby Superstar Ultra was the definitive way playing, you know, the entire game. As far as usually when it comes to the remake department, I know I do apologize for the actual commentary for this point, guys, because then again, I'm just felt a little bit slightly coldy. But hopefully by the time until next Tuesday, potentially, I will able to make myself a little bit more better. Because today, according to the actual uploading schedules today, is the forms of 2nd of January today. So, yeah, the 2nd day of 2020 so far. So I can't believe that the actual day itself just goes somewhat quicker, while others not so much most of the time. Because, well, again, there's no sign of the forms of new announcements just yet though. But I've noticed there's going to be some rumors out there. But then again, we'll point that out until when either when I get back into this, or if Piglet and Daffy will get back onto the forms of, you know, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games for sure. And so far so good anyway though, for starters of 2020, is the fact that I think some viewers may actually enjoy Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games Let's Play so far. This is probably because of how the fact that they're most likely into the actual series to begin with. Well, potentially speaking, because other than the fact that despite with you know, with Sochi 2014, doesn't get that much in terms of that much views though. Whilst compared to Beijing 2008 installment, oh man, the amount of views we've got is so much. I think it's pretty obvious because of how the fact that most people seem to think. It's hard to explain about that sometimes, I will admit though right away, because I need to seriously get back onto the forms of uploading schedules for the time, and I'm hoping, unlike in 2019, despite with the forms of the lack of uploads in the majority of August for that time, most notably because of the forms of the lack of the methods to able to record 3DS games and all that stuff, and also the cancellation of that marathon. And hopefully though, by the time in 2020 and beyond will be most likely guaranteed, that we're probably not going to get that much delays this time around. At least I'm hoping anyway though, because, well, at least in 2019, we keep on delaying certain stuff so much. And then hopefully by the time in 2020, we're not going to do that too much this time around. So hopefully that'll make it happen, especially noticeable how the fact that this is going to be a biggest year when it comes to likely for ourselves at this moment. Well, it wasn't until when we get to 2021 that we might actually get ourselves the biggest year for our channel, which even then I will point it out whenever we get to that specific time. So, oh yeah, there are some rare occasions where, as you can see, we need to get the key from that enemy down there, but in order to actually get to him though, is the fact that you need to be fast on that stuff. Now in this first stage, when it gets like involved around this enemy, it's actually not that hard, but until later on though, if you really want to go for, you know, trying to go after those energy spheres, well, this is where it gets a little bit difficult as you progress. Whilst unlike the forms of how it does on the recent game, Star Allies, that everything else in that game is actually far too easy compared to the forms of this game and Triple Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Planet Robobots. I'm pretty sure because of the ally system, so. But then again though, we'll point it out whenever we get to that specific game, after we're done with, I'm pretty darn sure it will be Planet Robobots, or just anything else for that part. And hey, look at that, we're actually now on to number 1 here. And of course, like the forms of how it does it on Kirby's Adventure, is the fact that if you try to put those numbers in the correct order, like 7 all the way up to 1, it actually gives you a whole lot of extra lives. Which, speaking of which actually, is the fact that this game is super generous with extra lives, just like before. Because of that though, there's going to be a lot of stars everywhere else during the forms of certain levels. And this time around though, although it's kind of like the same thing for Kirby 64, that basically it gets like a different color of stars, which depends on how much you're going to be getting based off of what colors you're going to be obtaining for. Such as like, for instance, for example, the yellow stars obviously gives you just only 1, and then even though I need to able to do a little bit of calculations whenever we're able to come across into 1, so yeah, those yellow stars, it actually only gives you just only 1 point, or in this case that just 1 star in particular. And I think it's kind of like a little bit of a difference compared to the forms of how it does it in Kirby's Dreamland 2, Dreamland 3, and especially with Kirby 64, is that the amount of stars in order to actually get the actual extra lives this time around is that obviously you need to grab about 100 of them rather than 30 compared to Kirby 64, which is actually a little bit different this time, because I don't mind this at all, because unlike the forms of how it does it in the previous games, is the fact that when you start the game off, if you can clearly tell I got myself 12 lives as opposed to 5, is that this game does offer us 7 extra lives, which continues that tradition in Kirby Triple Deluxe, especially noticeable with Kirby Planet Robobot, and also Star Allies. So, well, at least unlike in Star Allies, that you can able to keep your lives forever, and then there's no need to able to worry about get a major loss of the forms of extra lives department. However though, for this game, as well as Triple Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Planet Robobot, unfortunately though, if you turn off the main game or reset the game, basically your lives will reset. You know, just like how it did in the forms of the Super Mario Galaxy games, basically. So, I have no idea why back in the day, in 2011 and beyond, that why it doesn't allow us to able to actually save our lives counter if we keep on revisiting back to the game again. Like, I just don't know why. Because at least unlike Sonic Colors or something like that, that it allows me to able to save up my extra lives for my disposal. But in certain Nintendo games, well, I don't get it about the fact that why does it able to reset to its normal self every time you're able to reset your software as far as I'm concerned. Whatever. So anyways, here's another pickup right here, which appears to be the actual rainbowy kind of trombone. I think that's what the actual instrument is representing for, but then again, it has been such a long time since I actually played this game. I think the last time I touched upon this was actually when we did manage to got this back in Christmas 2011, and we haven't touched it since. So I promise you, we're probably not going to able to go for that, oh, I haven't really played that game too many times all that much. I think it's pretty obvious because of how the fact that, well, we're usually more into the forms of other Wii games during the future. Like, for instance, for example, for Mario Party 9, whenever that game came out in 2012, despite we have not got that game in day one, but oh well though. The next Ultra Power, as you can see right there, this appears to be by the forms of Monster Flame, and differently from the likes of Ultra Sword, even though it's kind of like the same thing from here, except unlike the forms of Ultra Sword, well, usually the flame, the Monster Flame can only just shoot straight forward, rather than just, all around in a circle slash, unlike the forms of Ultra Sword. So it's pretty cool though, and it's pretty cool to able to actually feature the ultimate powers, or whoa, jeez Louise, that was really close. I almost fell off when as soon as I able to actually jump from that pit over there. Oh well. But anyways, let's go ahead and just burn those little tree trunks as far as we can continue proceeding and get an extra life in the process. And we do need to able to destroy that tree over there, so that way we can able to access to another portal dimension. So even then, we're able to actually go for that specific stuff. Now, for those segments right there, that the first few of them is actually pretty easy for starters, but then again though, it gets progressively tough as soon as you progress through the later worlds throughout. Specifically, in World 7 specifically is a prime example, but then again, we'll point it out whenever we get to it, so... Anywho though, as far as I'm aware, what was I gonna say before? Oh yeah, with the forms of the playable characters in this game, that, I mentioned this before already, you start the game by obviously selecting Kirby as player 1, because obviously his name was on the title, and also you can able to play as Meta Knight King Dedede, and also Bandetta Waddle Dee from ever since in Kirby Superstar Ultra, which is pretty cool, and you can able to play as 1 to 4 players, just like how it did in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, except the fact that, well, you can actually have multitude of choice. You can either just use those 3 characters as I mentioned earlier, or you can able to utilize the different colored Kirbys, just like the forms of how it does it in, well, specifically Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. And also, unlike Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, that in order to actually play multiplayer on that game, is that you need to use the Game Boy Advance cable link. Well, that's no longer needed on the forms of Kirby's Adventure Wii / Kirby's Return to Dreamland, because you have to simply just purchase the Wii remote all by itself. So, at least I'll give it credit for it, just because, for one, it's obviously the console Kirby game, of course, and second is that, well, we don't need to able to do all these complicated setups, unlike the Game Boy Advance cable link from the likes of, well, from the Amazing Mirror and stuff. So, that's pretty cool though, and especially noticeable how the fact that, thankfully, the actual multiplayer aspect doesn't require us to utilize the CPU department up until, Kirby's Star Allies for the Switch, but then again, we'll point it out whenever we get to it at some point, so... There we go, I think that pretty much takes care of stage number 4, and, well, I think we might actually get this world completed during this particular video, so... Hopefully that'll be the case though, especially noticeable how the fact that since we've done those 4 stages, and now we ended up on a boss level, so even then, God knows what the actual the first boss would it be. And also we actually managed to gather every single of those energy spheres, so kudos to that. I do like the actual, the music in the background right there, because it always kind of reminds me of the Metroid Prime, kind of music in the background, but, even though except the fact that this is HAL Laboratory instead of, Retro Studios and all that stuff. And what you know it, the first boss, as you can see on screen, I think it's pretty obvious, we're gonna be faced off against with Wispy Woods again, so... yeah, to be expected, and we can able to utilize the fire copy ability, because that way you're able to do the amount of damage. And just like before, ever since, you know, I think the last time we actually fight against with Wispy Woods, it was actually from Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland for the Game Boy Advance, or else if you really want to count Spring Breeze mode for Kirby Superstar / Superstar Ultra. But then again, though, we haven't come across into that Let's Play just yet for Ultra version of Superstar, though, so that's probably just me. Oh, really? I get swallowed twice. Whatever. Let's just finish him off anyway, though. He's pretty easy, though, if you get the hang of it, though. But most of the time, I always keep on, messing things up a little bit because of the faults of that vacuum, kind of technique. And every once in a while, though, as you can see, we got one of those, ship parts. And basically, in order to actually just to complete the actual main game, not only do you able to get yourselves the energy spheres to begin with, but also you need to grab the majority of those ship parts. So even then, I think you need to grab about 5 of them in total. So even then, though, to be expected, I think we might actually come across into ourselves 5 worlds throughout. Well, at least for the most part anyway, though. And every once in a while, though, is that every time you see these cutscenes right there, it actually tells us about the fact that we actually accomplished something. So that's just all there is to know. And I think we did manage to restore his, auras, as far as I'm aware, because I can definitely tell from that specific shape and all that stuff. And then we immediately after that, we did manage to entering inside the actual ship itself. You did it, Kirby. My ship has its, auras back. Thank you so much. I'm counting on you to find the other missing parts. Keep up the good work. And don't forget to keep an eye out for those energy spheres. If you collect enough, the broken doors within my ship will be reactivated. Okay, seems fair enough. And I think we actually come across into ourselves into there are 2 really cool sub-games that you can definitely try out, which I'll probably show that off and join at some point after we're done with this Let's Play for sure. And not to mention, copy ability rooms where it gets like all kinds of different challenges and what have you. I think we might actually come across into one of them so far, which appears to be by the forms of the Swords Challenge room. But, however though, let's not do that just yet though, because we have to deal with the main objective first before we're able to deal with all sorts of stuff, like, you know, it's all kinds of stuff you might as well notice. So we got 13 of those energy spheres so far. Way to go, Kirby, you reactivate the door to the challenge room. So yeah, kudos to that, and why not give it a try, and then just go to the right you go. So even then, as what Megalore tells us to. So pretty cool for Megalore as a character design though, but of course you will able to come back in junior forms of recently Kirby Star allies, especially noticeable with the most recent Kirby game at the moment, which appears to be the microtransactions heavy game, which is of course Super Kirby's Clash, which I found that game okay, but nothing outstanding to me though, because well, it actually makes the frame rate a little bit lacking this time around though, but then again, I'll point it out whenever we're able to continue the rest of the Let's Play of this though, basically. So anyways though, we now access to this next world here, which appears to be Raising Ruins. So I guess we're ending stuff here. So join me on Tuesday for more of Let's Play of Kirby's Adventure Wii. Is that we're going to be hit on to Raising Ruins. So see you guys on Tuesday. Later, fellas.